This is my Premier League 23-24 predictions that will 100% be correct. And trust me, you're gonna want to stay into the end of this video because there's gonna be a lot of upsets because I am bold. So let's get started. Starting off with the club that's going to finish last place in the Premier League this season, I've gone with Luton Town. Not really a bold decision for me because everybody thinks they're going to finish last, but it's the truth. There's no way I can see them staying up. They did incredible to beat Coventry City in the playoff final, and the story going from non-league football to Premier League football is inspiring. But in my opinion, they haven't done enough business in the transfer window, and a lot of their resources are going to expanding their stadium to fit in the minimum requirements for the Premier League, but still, they did get a couple $100 million at least for winning the playoff final, and they haven't really used that at all for their signings. Out of everybody they brought in, like Ogbene, Issa Kabor, Ryan Gills, etc., only one of them was at a pretty decent level, and that's Tahith Chong. But with Chong being Luton's biggest signing of the window, nah man, it's not looking too good, bro. With his lack of business and lack of rumors surrounding Luton's transfer plans, they're definitely finishing last for me. I'm sorry. But Luton fans, don't get it twisted, bro. I'm still rooting for y'all. Now moving on to the 19th relegation place, I'm going for a club that just got promoted just like Luton Town, and it's Sheffield United. Now Sheffield have an experienced older team in my eyes, which is fine, and they also had the second best home form in the championship last season, only behind Burnley. But your home form stats in the championship mean nothing when it comes to the Premier League, because the Prem is just an entirely different level. Plus, like I said about Luton, none of the transfers Sheffield have made have moved me. Their biggest signing from what I can see is Larouci from Troy, an ex-Liverpool Academy player, so I know him kind of well, and he's a good player, but he's not enough to keep Sheffield up, despite the club having some good players like Sander Berge. But recently, they just lost their best player currently, and that's Ndiaye to Marseille. So yeah, Sheffield are cooked. However, at the time of recording this, Sheffield is currently invading the American market because they've already signed Birmingham City's best defender from last season, Austin Trusty, and also they're linked to signing Malik Tillman from Bayern Munich, who just recently spent a successful loan at Rangers last season. These two signings will help Sheffield in their relegation scrap massively. But as of right now, there is no way Sheffield is going to survive the Premier League. Last but not least for the relegation places, I'm going to have to be bold, and I'm going to have to say Everton Football Club are going back down. Listen, in the past two seasons, Everton have cut it extremely close in the relegation battles and have narrowly escaped. And with Everton not impressing me as much in the transfer window this season, I'm going to have to say third time's a charm. I think they'll go down. Like I said, despite signings like Danjuma, I don't think Everton have done enough business. They lost some important players in the squad as well, like Townsend, Yerry Mina, Tom Davies, and their best player from last season, Anthony Gordon, left them in the winter transfer window. So safe to say, it's not looking too good for Everton. However, this all can change if Calvert-Lewin can manage to keep himself fit, but that might be too much for him looking at his injury record. But yeah, as a Liverpool fan, I would not mind seeing Everton going down to the championship. Moving on, I think the club that will narrowly escape relegation would have to be Wolverhampton Wanderers. In fact, in terms of squad value, they're lower than Everton, and I said they're getting relegated. Wolves do have some quality in their team though, like Hwang Hee-chan, who's due to have a proper good season, and Matthew Nunes in the midfield, who I think is someone Liverpool should actually be looking at. He's a baller. But overall, Wolves have done absolutely nothing in the transfer market so far, and they're definitely lacking up front. They lost some great attacking quality like Ruben Neves to Al Hilal, and also Raul Jimenez to Fulham. And their only decent backup quality in my opinion right now is Matheus Cunha. I do think that Wolves will pull off a miracle and somehow survive relegation unlike the last match day, but besides that, I don't think there's enough going for them. Sorry. Let's now move on to 16th place, and I'm gonna have to go with the boring answer and say Bournemouth. Last season, they surprised me, because I thought they were going to get relegated, but instead, they finished 15th place and survived rather comfortably. Plus, their striker, Dominic Solanke, who's also an ex-Liverpool player, played fairly well, getting 6 goals and 7 assists in 33 games in the top division alone. However, they haven't improved much this transfer window, despite signing the likes of the talented Jaime Traore from Sassuolo and Jesse Cliver from Roma. Bournemouth are just an average dead team, man. There's nothing surprising about them or entertaining about them, and they're kind of just there. It sounds kind of mean, but that's just the truth. So for me, they'll finish 16th place, and let's swiftly move on to the next club. So for 15th place, I'm gonna have to go for Nottingham Forest. Now last season they spent so much money on new players in the summer transfer window, but ended up being in a relegation fight for the majority of the campaign. However, they got together by the end of the campaign, and by the quality of some of their players like Morgan Gibbs-White and Brendan Johnson for example, they helped Nottingham get out of the relegation zone towards the end of the season to finish comfortably in the lower half of the table. I admire Nottingham though, for sticking with manager Steve Cooper and trusting him to save them, because in the end Cooper did, and it seems like the owners are backing him this summer once again as well, with them signing Manchester United attacker Anthony Elanga, which would be a huge addition to an already decent Nottingham attack. However, they haven't improved much that defensively, which I thought Nottingham would seriously do over the summer. And with a poor away record of only getting 1 victory against terrible Southampton last season from home, I think Nottingham are going to finish towards the bottom but not getting relegated, which is why I picked them to be 15th place. Now next up in 14th place, I'm going to have to go for Fulham, who did really well last season and managed to finish 10th right after getting promoted from the championship. However, I think Fulham aren't going to do as well this season compared to last season. I think Fulham need to provide find more depth to the back line to help out the old Tim Ream, who played really well last season by the way, and that's exactly what they did by signing Calvin Bassey from Ajax, who would really help. They're also going out and getting some new weapons in the offense, like signing Raul Jimenez from Wolves, like I mentioned previously, and they're also close to signing Callum Hudson-Odoi from Chelsea at the time of me recording this. However, despite some really good business, I still don't think Fulham will do as good this season, and that's because they're losing their top goal scorer from last season, Mitrovic, who is set to be joining Al Hilal very soon. Mitrovic wants that Saudi paycheck and forced his way out of the English club, and I think that Mitrovic is a better striker than Raul Jimenez, so that's why I think Fulham aren't going to do as well this season compared to last. Plus, second season syndrome, bro, is going to hit Fulham for sure. Now for 13th place, I'm going to have to go for a surprise, but before that, if you haven't already, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it and it helps me out a lot, so thank you. Anyways, the surprise I'm going for is Burnley Football Club. Hear me out though, because I know it's pretty rare for a team getting promoted from the championship to finish somewhere mid-table. But listen, Burnley have played some beautiful football in the championship, and it's all thanks to the new manager, Man City legend, Vincent Kompany. With them, Burnley managed to get over 100 points in the championship, getting 101 points, and also managed to score 87 goals in a single campaign, showing that they dominate defenses down in the second tier of England. I know the Premier League is a different beast, but when you're dominating opponents that easily in the championship, surely you're gonna do well in the first tier of English football. Plus, they've done some really good business so far in the transfer window, like signing Redmond from Besiktas, James Trafford from Man City, who also starred for the England U21s, saving that last-minute penalty against Spain in the final, and also Luca Colioshi from Espanyol, who by the way is also American, despite him representing Italy officially in the youth ranks. Burnley have also kept a lot of their quality players, like Zaroury, the Moroccan star boy, who absolutely moves me. So yeah, with Kompany at the helm, I think Burnley is gonna do fairly well this season, which is why I think they're gonna finish 13th place. Moving on to 12th place, I'm gonna have to go for West Ham United. The reason is very simple, to be honest. Although they did well to win the Conference League, getting a European trophy under David Moyes, West Ham have lost a lot of quality over the transfer window. They lost Manuel Lanzini, who I thought was really underrated, Scamacca probably to Inter Milan, and also their main man and their captain Declan Rice to Arsenal. And so far, West Ham have done absolutely nothing in this summer window, and I don't think they're gonna do much either. West Ham still got some quality though, like Lucas Paqueta and Saïd Benrahma for example. Plus, with them bouncing the Europa League and the Premier League, I think they'll struggle to do that for a bit, which is why I got them in 12th place. Moving on to 11th place, I'm gonna have to go for Brentford. They had a really impressive campaign last year with them getting 9th place, but this season is bound to be a little bit different. For starters, Ivan Toney has been banned from football for several months, meaning that Brentford are gonna be losing their best player and main striker for some time, and they haven't even found a replacement for the time being. Also, it seems likely that Brentford is gonna lose their goalkeeper as well, Raya, to either Arsenal or Bayern Munich. So Brentford, it's not looking too good for you. However, with Thomas Frank in charge, I think Brentford will still perform rather decently, and I'm sure they'll do well in the transfer market during the last month to get them in good shape for the season. Also, Brentford, y'all should sign Balogun, bro. He could replace Tony well. Trust. Now for 10th place in the Premier League next season, I'm gonna have to go for Crystal Palace. I like Palace and I think they're a really good team, with them having some quality players like Eze, Olise, for now, Chris Richards, Guehi, Anderson, Mitchell, Doucouré, etc. However, for me, when I look at this Crystal Palace team, I see absolutely no depth. And I think towards the later stages of the season, when they might be battling fatigue and injuries, Palace will struggle because of their lack of depth. However, despite losing their best player, maybe ever, Wilfried Zaha to Galatasaray, and maybe even Olise to Chelsea, Palace have already signed their next top talent, Matheus Franca from Brazil. So yeah, Palace always do well with their young talent, but nothing crazy like usual. So that's why I think Palace will finish 10th place. It's just typical from them. Now moving on to the single digits of the table, I got Brighton Hove Albion finishing 9th place. I rate Brighton a lot actually, and I think they have some great gems, like Mitoma, who popped off last season, and also Enciso, the Paraguayan that came out of nowhere and scored a screamer against Chelsea. But now, even with the losses of McAllister to Liverpool, and probably Moises Caicedo to Chelsea, Brighton still look pretty good despite these two huge losses. I mean, they went ahead and signed João Pedro from Watford, which I think is a really underrated signing for Brighton, and plus they also just signed the vastly experienced James Milner, and of course the ex-Dortmund star, Mahmoud Dahoud. So even though Brighton might be losing a couple of top players, I personally believe that they've done well to replace them, and they're still going to be performing well in the Premier League. Maybe not Europa League level good, but still in the top half of the table for me. Now 8th place might be a surprising one to some. I've gone for Tottenham Hotspur for the second year in a row. It's not looking too good for Tottenham and their fans, and let me explain why. I think their new manager signing of Ange Postecoglou, the ex-Celtic manager who did really well for the Scottish club, is a smart move, and Daniel Levy needs to trust the process with him because I rate him pretty highly. Also, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, but I probably didn't though, knowing me. Anyways, I just don't think Tottenham are that good of a side anymore. They brought in some good players like James Maddison from Leicester City, who I'm sure will help Tottenham out, and Manor Solomon from Fulham. But even then, it's not enough, especially when it looks like Harry Kane is looking really likely to leave the club and probably to Bayern Munich. And without Kane, I think Tottenham are finished. So with that, I think Tottenham need to go through a major rebuild, and I think this will take time. So next season, Tottenham is going to have it rough and finish 8th place. Sorry Tottenham fans, but I'm speaking the truth. Moving on to 7th place, I'm going to have to go for Aston Villa for also the second time in a row. It's because Aston Villa have kept their quality squad intact, like Ollie Watkins, Konsa, Mings, Buendia, Bailey, Ramsey, Emi Martinez, etc. etc. They're all staying at Villa because they believe in Unai Emery's project, and he's the man who helped Villa finish in a Conference League spot last season after a very rough start. Not only that, Villa has strengthened their squad, like signing Moussa Diaby from Bayer Leverkusen, who is tempted by Saudi money but chose Villa still, Pau Torres from Villarreal, and also Tielemans on a free from Leicester City. So with these signings in addition to already a very good squad, Aston Villa are looking really scary for next season. And the only way that I think I will get this prediction wrong is that if Aston Villa finishes higher in the table, not lower. And also, I can totally see Aston Villa winning the Conference League as well, if I'm being perfectly honest. Anyways, let's move on to 6th place, where I'm gonna have to go for a 2-time Champions League winner, Chelsea. I know Chelsea fans in the comments are about to be pissed for saying that they'll finish in the Europa League spot, but hear me out, give me a second. Despite doing well in preseason, Chelsea are going through a massive rebuild, and this will be their first season, with Conte, Koulibaly, and Edouard Mendy leaving to Saudi Arabia, Pulisic and Loftus-Cheek leaving to AC Milan, and the likes of Hudson-Odoi, Ziyech, Mount, Havertz, Kovacic, Aubameyang, Azpilicueta leaving the club as well, or not being part of the plans. So with this mass exodus at the club, I think Chelsea are going to be a big mystery for next season. Like, they can do really well or even do really poorly. Thing about Chelsea though is they actually did sign some good players, like Nkunku and Nicholas Jackson, and I think players like Mudryk are ready to blow up. But still, I think it's a little too soon for this young Chelsea side, which is why I think they're going to finish 6th place and end up in the Europa League. Now listen up, Pochettino is a master at rebuilding teams, so Todd Bowley just needs to give him time and trust the process. It'll be worth it in the end, probably. Now moving on to 5th place, I'm gonna have to go for Newcastle. There isn't much to say about them except that Eddie Howe is pulling off a masterclass with this Newcastle squad, helping them get Champions League football last season. However, despite a majority of the squad staying the same, with a few additions like Tonali and Harvey Barnes, I think Newcastle will drop off a little bit compared to last season. I think Newcastle still have a long way to go in building that depth with their squad, and balancing the 10th Champions League with the Premier League is going to be really tough, since they'll be doing that for the first time. However, they've got a very talented squad still, so they're not going to drop off massively, but I think they're going to struggle balancing the two competitions simultaneously, and I think this is going to take a hit on Newcastle, which is why I think they're going to finish 5th place. They'll easily take that though, because this Saudi Arabian rebuild is going to be here for a long time for Newcastle, so finishing 5th is not going to be the end of the world for them. Now let's move on to top 4 territory, and this is where football fans are going to get pissed at what I'm about to say, but screw it, I'm going to say how it is. For 4th place, I'm going to have to go for Manchester United. This was a really difficult decision for me, because a lot of my friends are actually Manchester United fans. But anyways, this is what I think, so hear me out. Man United have improved their squad a little bit, with them signing Mason Mount from Chelsea, which should really help them in theory, but he was really poor last season with Chelsea, and has been pretty poor in preseason as well. They did manage to sign Holland from Atalanta, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he seems to be really promising at just 20 years old. But he only scored single-digit goals in the Serie A last season, but he was sold for over 70 million euros to United, so I'm not sure on how he's going to perform in a much more difficult league than the Serie A. Man United have also just signed Onana at the goalkeeper position, replacing David De Gea, which honestly they should have done a long time ago. I feel like De Gea has been holding United back for some time now. But even with these 3 signings, I still think their squad is lacking a bit for them to compete at the top. Plus, just take a look at the United squad as a whole. There's some star players starting for them, but the depth isn't totally there yet. I feel like an injury to one of their star players, like Bruno or Rashford for example, will really hurt them since they don't have enough good players to replace them for a while. And don't tell me Jadon Sancho, bruh, he's been a bust for a while. He's just one of the many examples personally of players who should be performing on a much higher level than they are. But listen, Ten Hag is an incredible manager, so I'm sure he'll figure something out to help United finish top 4 at least. Plus, they're in the Champions League this season, so in my opinion, I think a lot of their focus is going to be on that competition. Now for 3rd place, I know this is going to piss off fans from this certain fan base, but I'm actually going to have to go for Arsenal. It's a pretty surprising decision, but hold up, just let me cook. Arsenal's depth is absolutely phenomenal now, and they've got a real squad that's going to help them compete with every single trophy they can win. So the Premier League, the Champions League, FA Cup, and Carabao Cup. Arteta has done an incredible job with helping Arsenal qualify for the Champions League and helped them a lot in the title race against Man City. But now it's come to the point where Arteta needs to start winning some silverware, or questions will be asked. And that's why, unlike last season where I felt like Arsenal threw some competitions away, like the Carabao Cup and Europa League for example, I think this season Arteta's going to want to go for every single trophy, which is why I think this will affect their chances at winning the Premier League. I think Arsenal could win something else, like the FA Cup, but with them balancing all 4 competitions seriously, I think this will actually dampen their chances of winning the Premier League, even with the new signs of Julian Timber, Declan Rice, and Kai Havertz. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments, but this is just what I'm thinking. Now we're down to the final 2, the classic Liverpool and Manchester City rivalry. So who's going to win the Premier League this season? A re-energized Liverpool or the treble holders Manchester City? I truly believe that the Premier League this season is going to be a title race for the ages, but I got one club edging it, and let me tell you, y'all are about to be pissed at what I'm going to say. But in 2nd place, I'm going to have to go for Manchester City. I already know the comments are finna be heated, but this is what I'm thinking, just let me explain. Manchester City have definitely been weakened during this transfer window. They already lost Gundogan on a free to Barcelona, and also lost plus Riyad Mahrez to Al Ahly, who are both really important players to City. Plus, there's a ton of question marks over some of their current players, like Bernardo Silva and João Cancelo for example, who are both currently looking for new clubs to sign with both wanting a new challenge. Plus, City have just won the treble, which is really impressive obviously, but having to go at it again and do the same thing the very next season is a very tall task. I'm not going to say that City is going to fall apart like Liverpool did last season, but we saw how much it drained Liverpool the next season after being 2 wins away from the quadruple. Who says this can't happen to a very talented City team? Plus, compared to previous seasons, this seems to be a weaker Man City side, with them losing players and not replacing them currently. So yeah, there's probably a bit of bias in there, but I think there's going to be a huge Premier League change this season, and that's why I think City is going to finish second. So as you guys have concluded, I've got my own club Liverpool in first place. Yes, I fully admit there's some bias in there, but I'm actually believing in this Liverpool team a lot, and I honestly think that we can do the double with the Premier League and the Europa League, but only time will tell obviously. Now as a Liverpool fan, I'm personally very moved by the signings we've already made so far in this transfer window, with 2 elite midfielders coming in, with McAllister and Szoboszlai joining the club, and also being very closely linked to Romeo Lavia from Southampton and Andre from Fluminense, or Fluminense, I don't really know how to pronounce that club. Plus, some very reliable sources have said that Klopp expects Liverpool to sign 2 more midfielders and 1 more defender before the window closes. And if this happens, I think Liverpool have some really talented depth. Plus, the Europa League isn't going to weaken this side's depth because they probably won't have to take it super serious until the later stages of the tournament. And Klopp already doesn't take the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup seriously, with them already winning the 2 competitions before. So that means the Premier League is going to be the main focus. And I think if we get the signings we want, we're going to win it all. Believe that. Anyways, let me know whether you agree or disagree with my Premier League predictions in the comments down below. And also, if you haven't already, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I would appreciate it. And if you want to learn more about the Kylian Mbappe and PSG drama that's going on right now, be sure to check out this video right here. You won't regret it.